For all things Halloween, this is hauntformer, and welcome to my review of Pet Semetary, which goes to prove that sometimes dead is better. Pet Semetary tells the story of a man named Louis, a doctor who moves with his family into a new home in the rural countryside. It's by kind of this main highway, and that does play a factor in the plot. They move into this new home, and they begin to discover that something is very, very wrong. They meet a kindly old neighbor named Judd, who's this older man, and upon going into the forest, they discover that there is a pet cemetery where the people from around the area bury their lost, loved animals, and there's something mysterious going on with this pet cemetery. That's the basic plot, and I don't want to necessarily say that I'm getting into spoilers, but I feel like I just want to give the warning. But do remember that there was a 1989, I think, film that was released by the exact same name, Pet Semetary. You probably heard of it, if not have seen it already, and it is based off of the Stephen King novel of the same name. And it kind of has this monkey paw-esque story about bringing the dead back to life, but they're not exactly the same anymore. And I feel like with that story alone, you have a lot of substance and potential for such a great, groundbreaking horror film. And the original, while it wasn't a perfect horror movie, I do have memories of seeing it. It was one of the first horror films that I can recall watching at a younger age. And there were definitely some heavy scenes. You kind of felt that the family all cared about one another, and the parents really cared about their kids, and the parents cared about one another. So when, spoiler alert by the way, Gage is struck by a car, you feel the emotion when Louis is screaming out in the road. And then later on in the film, when his wife dies, you know he's going to go back to the pet cemetery because that is where he is finding answers, if that makes sense. And this film, like, sucks the life out of the story. It just feels plain to me. I'm sorry. This film just felt very, very plain to me. First of all, I didn't feel the family dynamic. Perhaps it's because it's fresh in my head, but Us did a great job of, from the very beginning of the story, setting up the family, the characters, the relations to one another, and you really felt for the family early on, so when the horror appeared, you wanted to see the family come out safe. In this movie, you get right into the horror at the very beginning, and it loses the impact of the scares later on. Which, by the way, the movie really isn't that scary. Even with the quote-unquote heavy scenes of, like, and again, another spoiler alert, the daughter getting struck by the car, you kind of lose the gravity of the scene because of a bombardment of horror at the very beginning with the kids in the masks and the cemetery and creepy and fog, and it's just a lot. Then, of course, you have that twist reveal of the girl being struck by the car instead of Gage, which could have been interesting had we not already seen it in the trailer, which I think was a bad choice on whoever made the trailer, first of all. But second of all, even with that change, not much changed, except for the fact that I feel like Gage being a younger boy made it a little bit creepier because he couldn't really speak all that well, whereas this little girl speaks, and I don't want to, you know, bash on a child actor because I'm sure she has great potential, but in this film I really didn't feel her character coming to life. It felt like she was acting, and a lot of the characters and actors kind of felt like they were just acting. I think that also has to do with the cinematography. Again, I guess I'm nitpicking here, but personally, I didn't like the cinematography. It was spotty, it was all over the place, and it couldn't keep one scene focused on what was happening. It had to jump cut to all of these other different things. I don't know. I guess you could say the movie kind of died in its own respective way. Somewhere along the film, I think I just kind of gave up on watching it and got kind of bored, quite honestly. Even with the throwbacks and homages to the old film and in the book, especially with like Judd and the scene with his heel, which I always was freaked out about, and it really wasn't even that extreme in this movie, because again, everything's like boom, scary horror at you. It kind of loses the effect of the scare. And while I did mention that some of the acting is a little bit spotty in certain scenes throughout this movie, one performance that I actually did find interesting throughout the movie was John Lithgow as Judd. I thought he was really interesting, and even though I don't think he's able to quite replace the shoes that Fred Gwynne filled in the 1989 version, I do think he did a good job of making the character, you know, interesting and mysterious. But I felt like in terms of the Pet Semetary elements, those could have been more mysterious and revealed throughout the movie, but very early on we kind of get an entire explanation. But with that being said, there were some interesting little throw-in lines about the Wendigo and kind of the backstory of that spot of land. That was kind of cool, but other than that, I don't know what to really say about this movie other than I guess I was expecting something different, and I wasn't expecting much because, again, like I said, the original wasn't like super groundbreaking for me, but I felt like it had something more, and this film didn't give me that. I guess you could say Dead is better. And if you're a horror fan and if you love the original, or if you're just a Stephen King guru, go check out this movie. You just might like it, but for me, it fell flat. And especially considering that it came from the folks who made the recent It remake, or rehashing, if you will. And that was a pretty well done movie. I felt like there could have been a lot more here. There is a little nod to Derry, the town from It, by the way, if you didn't catch it in the film. You can let me know your entire thoughts in the comments below, but overall, I'm going to give Pet Semetary 2019 edition a 2.5 out of 5 skulls. That's very in the middle. I kind of want to give it a little lower, but I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt that maybe some of you guys out there will enjoy it a little more than I did. Yeah, I mean, there's not too much to say other than it just felt very plain to me. And I would have to say that so far, you know, I'm only in the month of April right now, but so far it's probably my least favorite horror film that I've seen thus far this year. But hey, maybe if I watch it again, something will change. Thank you for watching this video, and again, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Remember, as always, for all things Halloween, this is hauntformer.